Mayor Louis Trujillo.
Present.
Councilor David Romero.
Here.
Councilor Elaine Rodriguez.
Here.
Councilor Michael Montoya.
Present.
Councilor David Olivari Jr.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We do have a quorum.
Thank you. I'd like to welcome Jacob Romero. He's a new seminarian in Our Lady of Sorrows. He'll be here for the rest of the year, I think. So welcome, and he's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please come up and welcome. Right there,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Jacob, one more request. Could you do a prayer for us?
Sure.
Thank you.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day, for the many blessings you continue to bestow upon us, especially bringing us together this day. May we continue to unite ourselves with you, Lord, ultimately, but with each other, and support one another, love one another, as you have continually loved us. And just always know the constant presence you have in our lives. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. I think I'll invite you to every meeting. That's a beautiful prayer. Welcome, Jacob. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, approval of agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
I don't know, City Manager, was there a recommendation to change one of the items for EMT? I mean, for the emergency manager? Or is it fine where he's at?
No, sir. It's fine the way it sits.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
A second. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, a second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya.
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.
Yes.
Councilor Romero.
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez.
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Next order of business is public input. We have no public input tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Next order of business is mayor's appointments, reports, recognitions, and proclamations. The first one is the appointment of 4 members to the redistricting committee, 1 from each ward. And if I may name them out, we have
Sure.
Ward 1, Mr. P. Carduno, Ward 2, Mr. Dale Turner, Ward 3, Mr. Jacob Gutierrez, and Ward 4, Amanda Salas.
I'll entertain a motion to accept the members to the redistricting committee.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya?
I'll make a motion to go ahead and approve these names before us, and they're representing each ward. And imagine every councilman appointed an individual. So I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor.
I second that, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya, second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Montoya, second by Councilor Romero. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Montoya?
I would also request that they also work closely with our city clerk to get direction on the purpose of the redistricting, and whomever we get as a contractor.
And we'll leave it to you to call the meetings?
Yes, I can do that, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor.
Okay, thank you.
And if there's any issues or concerns or questions, please bring them back to us,
I
and
certainly
we'll
will.
address them. Thank you, Clerk.
Next is our proclamation for Crop Walk 2021.
I'm excited about this. This is a great cause. It helps to feed people worldwide, and even in our community, some of that money that they collect and raise feeds our people in our community as well. So to accept the proclamation is Bonnie Bolton. And I'll read the proclamation, and if you'd like to come up, Bonnie, that's fine. If not, you can send somebody. Whereas area churches in numerous schools, hold on, let me make sure this is the right one. Ending Hunger Month? There we go. All right. We have a bunch tonight. Whereas area churches in numerous schools and civic organizations will be conducting the Las Vegas Crop Hunger Walk through the month of October, and whereas funds raised this month will assist in part local local relief agencies, including Comedor de San Pascual, Soup Kitchen, and the Pantry in the Las Vegas Community Soup Kitchen, and the Samaritan House. And whereas these funds, in part, also go to the church World Service to provide national and international relief, development, and refugee resettlement, and whereas Las Vegas and neighboring communities have faithfully supported Croc Hunger Walks and Church Worldwide Service by raising more than $1,777,000. Wow. In the 20 years of the walk. Now therefore I, Louis Trujillo, Mayor of the City of Las Vegas, along with the members of our governing body, hereby proclaim October 2021 as Ending Hunger Month in the City of Las Vegas in recognition and support of the hundreds of crop walkers who will end hunger and one step at a time, and are asking us to join them in making the difference for hungry people locally, nationally, and around the world. And thank you so much, Bonnie, for doing this. Would you like to say a few words regarding the crop walk? Are you right there in the center?
Comedor de San Pascual has participated in the crop walk for many years, and they have also supported us in our efforts. So this was started in the late 1940s by farmers in the northern part of the Midwest of the United States who had leftover grain, and they got together and shipped it east to the East Coast and sent it to Europe to help keep the recovery from the war. So it's been going on for a long time. Church World Service is the main organization, and they'll support anyway. It doesn't matter what religious orientation you have. It was interesting, the gentleman that's covering this part of the United States on the crop walk, he's also involved in helping to get the Afghanis people resettled, which is another outreach of the Church World Service. But they've always been interested in helping to feed people, and it's sort of, I think it's important to know not just that people in our community are hungry, and it's not the only place. Every community has people who don't have enough food. It's often a hidden problem. So we're grateful to have the support of the community and working with Crop Walk and helping to feed people.
Thank you, Bonnie. Next order of business, Cassandra? You can stay there, Bonnie.
Mr. Mayor, can I take a minute?
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Bonnie Bolton. We appreciate all the hard work that you're doing out there. And Bonnie served in our other board at the NNBHI, and she helped fundraise over 10 years that we raised something like $50,000 for the patients at the NNBHI. On another note, it's only appropriate at this time that the Las Vegas First is going to be having a fundraiser again for the needy here in our community. And this year for Christmas, they're going to be asking volunteers and organizations and nonprofit organizations and businesses to donate a decorated tree. And this tree will be auctioned out, and all the money raised on that will be going to all the soup kitchens in our community. All the money stays here 100%. So I encourage you to make sure that you join them, help them out. The deadline is, I believe, on November the 12th, and the person you contact is Nancy at 505-617-6113. I'm sure we'll have it on our website and also on Facebook and so forth. But I challenge my colleagues up here to donate a tree, decorated tree, so that we can help support our kitchens in our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Does it matter what size? Is it
That's a
like a
3 foot.
small or?
A 3-foot tree.
6 feet.
3 foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I take on that challenge, Mr.
Thank you.
Boy.
Appreciate it.
I accept the challenge too.
Thank you. There we go, we got 5 challenge for, 3 challenges.
One more here.
Mr. Mayor,
One more
next,
here. There.
next on the
Thank you,
agenda
Mr.
is
Mayor.
recognition of Comedor de San Pascual and Las Vegas Community Soup Kitchen.
So these individuals are really making some magic in our community, and they're feeding a lot of hungry people, especially this last year. The last 18 months of this pandemic have been really challenging for them, and they've showed up, they didn't quit, they didn't stop, they found a way to distribute food, they found a way to get the food here, to feed people, and one of the things for me, I'm a big foodie person. I love to eat, and I cannot imagine what a child or an adult or anybody goes through when they face disparities, food disparities, or are hungry at night. So I was fortunate growing up. We were poor, but we had food, and so it's so important that all the work you're doing. And I wanted to recognize everybody at the soup kitchen for helping, and this is the Comedor de San Pascual and their volunteers and board members. And I'd like to read a list of names, and you're all going home with a brand new Cadillac. You get one, you get one. I started this project when I got elected. It's a Buen Vecino Award, and it's an award that recognizes people that are doing good things in our community. And please take these home and frame them, and they make really good souvenirs, and passing them along to your kiddos and to your grandkids and so forth. But displaying this on the wall is really something, because it means that you're doing something good for our community, for our neighbors. So I'd like to, of course, Bonnie's is here, and all of yours is in this clip somewhere. But I'd like to read a list real quick of all the people that help. Alfonso Ortiz, Antonio Gallegos, Audrey Martinez, Barb Nash, Bonnie Bolton, Kathy Marquez, and if I mispronounce a name, please forgive me. Connie Cruzmark, Erlinda Romero, Father Joseph Batts, Father Rob Yaxit. Sorry, Father Rob. Everyone knows he is Father Rob. Jerry Gallegos, Jacob Romero, Jeanette Yara, John Jeffroy, Joseph Abeta, Ken Cruzmark, Kim Parham, Lori Sandoval, Linda Bazilac, Martha Archuleta, Mary Louise Gygox, Nina Johns, Oneida Aragon, Les Prince Aragon, Pam Davis, Ralph Marquez, Shelley Soncher, Sherry Headley, and Zelda McCrossan. And the confirmation classes from Our Lady of Sorrows and Immaculate Conception churches, and the students from NMHU, the United World College, West Las Vegas, and Las Vegas City Schools. You got everybody involved.
We tried.
Wow, fantastic.
They need the message.
Yes, so Bonnie, I present you with a Buen Vecino Award, which means you're a good neighbor. And all your group for being here. Thank you so much for all the work that you do to feed the hungry, and I'll get there one of these days to help you, I promise. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, next is our proclamation for Catholic Daughters of the Americas Day.
Thank you. My sister's here to accept, well, not my sister, but my sister's sister, my work sister. Whereas the Catholic Daughters of America, of the Americas was instituted as an organization in 1903 for women with the purpose of growing in spirituality and working in faithful service and love for God. And whereas since the beginning, the Catholic Daughters have consistently and unselfishly used their God-given talents and time to work for quality of life and defense of humanity, and whereas Catholic Daughters have worked for social justice and shown compassion for those in our parishes, communities, nation, and world who are vulnerable, homeless, voiceless, and most in need, and whereas the Catholic Daughters participate in the March for Life, pray and work effortlessly to defend the right to life at all stages from conception to natural death as designed by God's creation, and whereas during the uncharted challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, Catholic Daughters once again showed their strength and sisterhood as they found many ways to serve those in need and unique ways to plan court meetings and to conduct business, check up on those alone and afraid, and keep the members connected by praying rosaries, divine mercy chaplets, and prayer services for the members of worldwide to calm the fears. And now, therefore, I, Louis Trujillo, Mayor of Las Vegas, along with members of the governing body, hereby proclaim October 16th, tomorrow, Catholic Daughters of America Day in the city of Las Vegas, and encourage all citizens to help those in need. Allie? Thank you very much. Would you like to say a few words about the Catholic Daughters?
I'm a newbie, so I was nominated to come and receive. But yes, I am very honored to be part of the Catholic Daughters, and I have to be nice because Father Rob's in the back. So yes, I am very honored, and thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Next order of business.
Mr. Mayor, I believe you have one more proclamation, a very special one.
This is a fun one of my favorites. I've never done this, and I've always wanted to do this. A very special lady by the name of Teresita Chavez is turning 100 years old on Friday, and so her husband, Max Chavez, also lived to be 100 and had a proclamation for him when he turned 100 by the former Mayor Vince Howell. So I've known the family for many years. I've known Sandra and Teresita and Joey and Justine and the whole gang for many, many years. Dear, dear friends of mine. So if you hear a lot of fire trucks and fireworks and police cars on Friday, that's where they're going to be. They're going to have a big parade. Come on up, Sandra. Sandra is Teresita Chavez's daughter. Whereas Teresita R. Chavez is proud to become a centenarian at 100 years young, she is a vibrant and loving woman. She is always happy to visit with family and friends and share a meal. She enjoys chatting with her family and her upbringing and her faith. And whereas Teresita was born on October 15, 1921 in the beautiful ranching community of Corazon, New Mexico, she grew up in the area known as Hilario, New Mexico, specifically El Charro, meaning where the natural springs emerges from the hillside. The spring that served the ranches and families in the area. And whereas Teresita was born to Alfredo Roybal and Patricia Saiz Roybal, she is the eldest of 9 siblings, taking on a nurturing role at a young age and helping to raise her siblings. And whereas Teresita married Max P. Chavez of Chaparrito, New Mexico, they shared a beautiful marriage for
more than 70 years.
Oh, wow.
They celebrated their winter wedding December 25th, 1941. Within a short time, she was a young military wife. As Max was drafted to World War II, Teresita has always been so proud of being a veteran and a rancher's wife. She made sure Max always started and ended the day with a hot meal. Teresita and Max have 7 children, 16 grandchildren, 17 great-grandchildren, 2 great-great-great-great-great-grandchildren. Teresita is very proud of her family. She is an amazing matriarch who leads her family by her strong Catholic faith. And whereas Teresita's life was grounded in raising, loving, and nurturing her family, she loves to cook and garden, tell stories, sing songs, and loving jokes. And whereas the city of Las Vegas recognizes the respect and admiration, the contribution of senior citizens to our community, and whereas longevity of life is a blessing for an individual and for a community which benefits from the knowledge, creativity, and experience this individual brings to all. Now therefore, I, Louis Trujillo, Mayor of the City of Las Vegas, along with the governing body, do hereby deem at the honor and pleasure on the occasion of her 100th birthday celebration, do hereby proclaim October 15th as Teresita A. Chavez Day in Las Vegas.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Happy birthday.
And congratulations. Beautiful. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, councilors' reports?
Councilors?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to just go ahead and mention that our city manager, myself, and Councilman Romero attended the outdoor conference in Farmington, New Mexico this last week, and it's pretty interesting of how growth is coming out up there in Farmington, that part of the state. But we had quite a few meetings. We met a lot of people. We got a lot of contacts, and we met with the Secretary
Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys.
Alicia Keys, yes. And out of those meetings resulted another meeting that Councilman Romero set up for us over here at the chambers, with our city manager, myself, and him. And we met with Daniel Gurule. He's the director in Santa Fe for the Main Street, and we approached him about the $200,000 that are lacking on that project on your ward, Mr. Rodriguez, on Railroad and Lincoln. And due to that meeting, we landed up with $200,000 to complete that project. So our city manager wrote a letter of support in that, and now we don't have to shortchange that project, and we can move forward. The other thing, Mr. Mayor, is I'll pass, Mr. Mayor.
Okay.
And that's my chain of thought on the next item.
I just want to say thank you. It's been real refreshing. I know I was appointed to this position, but it's been real refreshing to know that, we're elected for individual wards, but what's nice is all of us work for all wards for the betterment of Las Vegas. So I appreciate you taking that meeting. When one of us can't attend, the others attend, and it's just nice that we work in camaraderie, and we really work not only for our wards, but for the betterment of the city of Las Vegas. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Montoya, and thank you, Councilman. Romero, and thank you, City Manager. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Councilors? Anybody else?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir, Mr. Romero.
just kind of want to give, kudos to our city employees. We know that, a lot of things going on in our community for the betterment, and sometimes it seems like we're stuck, and as a community, we have people that don't understand that sometimes, things are going to happen within the community. We have shut down streets, water has to be shut off, and it just, I know sometimes, we get blamed here at the mayor and council that things aren't getting done, but, a lot of progress is being made, and, Maria and all the directors that are here, thank you to each one of your employees that are busting, getting things done, and sometimes the appreciation isn't there, but I want to make sure that, mayor and council are very aware of what they're doing, and thank them for the job that they're performing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Please second that.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Ulibarri?
Yes, I want to thank the street department. We went out to Santa Ana Street on North Star side of the school that was real with a lot of weeds and branches, but they went out there, and I went out there and helped them for a couple of hours, and we got it done. It was real close to the school. The kids were out there. They would look at it, and it was real bad. So I want to thank the street department for going out there and cleaning it up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. O'Toole?
I recollected what I was going to say.
Mhm.
At that conference, I know Dr. Elizabeth Juarez was representing the Watershed Alliance and Friends of the Gallinas, and they showed a video up there of the Gallinas River and in support of Las Vegas, and I think everybody enjoyed it, and they were amazed of what was going on there. And we appreciate her representing Las Vegas well up there, and it was an amazing trip, and I think that we can bring some of those ideas in the near future and mix them in with the Rodriguez Complex and other areas that we own city properties on to make more outdoor activities happen. We got some contacts and how to go about some grants and how to go about getting some funding for that. I know Mr. Tim Haggert's in here today. He's a representative for the northern part of the district, and hopefully he'll come present to us one of these days also on his side of it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, we have City Manager's report. Mr. Maestas?
Welcome, Mr. Maestas.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Make this short and brief. I know we have a long council meeting ahead of us, so
Did we get a report from you, City Manager?
I wanted to go digital. I think everybody was in agreement, so we wouldn't make so many copies, but I can
Okay.
definitely make you copies after,
Okay.
or send you it digitally if you like. First, I'd like to start the evening with welcoming our new employees within our departments. We have Elias Baca in our Parks and Recs department. We have Xavier Herrera in our Public Works. Mr. Damien Gutierrez, in Fire Department. Lucas Prada in Fire Department, and then I'll leave the two for next week for Police Chief for his two new recruits that are coming in. Also, we'd like to welcome to the City of Las Vegas and in their endeavors to new businesses that are coming into the City of Las Vegas, which is Custom Coachworks, Gabriel's Landscaping, J3 Systems, Chameleon Construction, Dirty Sanchez Automotive Finish, Westmore Land Builders, and Ants Benditas, and Smith's Mechanical. I'd like to move into some awards that the city recently received. The top 4 awards are through the New Mexico Aging and Long-Term Services. They're through capital outlay funds from a different pot of money outside of our regular legislative pot of monies. The first would be our $315,000 for purchase, design, and installation of 5 HVAC systems on our senior center. These are all tied to our senior center. Number 2 is a $50,000 award for facility sewage, drainage, and electrical upgrades. $225,000 for purchase of 2 hotshot trucks that are well beyond needed for the services that we provide to the community. Also an SUV and 1 transport bus, $1,135,700 for design, re-engineer, and for the lighting upgrades at the senior center parking lot is well needed again. We have a lot of seniors that can't make it up on the slope of the current sidewalk and parking lot and the way it sits today. So we're gonna move forward with getting those implemented and get those, spend those monies that were awarded to us. Moving on to legislative appropriations, we're all aware, I think the council's well aware, we wanted to let the community know of these appropriations that were given to the city this go around, which is $90,000 for the Guyanas River Walk, $40,000 for maintenance dump truck, $50,000 for museum repairs, which is well beyond needed for that building. $185,000 for new police vehicles in our police department. $50,000 for our Aiden Employee Recreation Center tied to a solar project, and $3.5 million, which is our Rodriguez Park complex. Which leads me to our invitation to the community on our Rodriguez Park complex groundbreaking ceremony that's going to take place this Saturday, October 16th at 10:30. We will have the Governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, with us to celebrate the day, and we can get started with the construction and design. Well, started with the design phases, doing some surveying, and there will be refreshments on the day. So we welcome any parts of the city. We want this to be a hub for the northeastern region part of the state. So we've invited some communities, Santa Rosa, Mora, Pecos. We really want it to be utilized by all the youth in the area.
Exciting.
Moving on to, we had our New Mexico Self Insurance Fund come and do a lost site visit with four of our facilities, I should say, being City Hall, Streets, and Public Works Department here behind our City Hall, Community Development, and our wastewater treatment plant. There was no major findings. There was a few findings that our safety officer, Agent Jaramillo, is going to start addressing in the week to come. Also, we've scheduled much-needed CPR and first aid training for October 28th and 29th. 18 to 20 staff will be in this first go-round of training for CPR and first aid with our safety officer, Agent Jaramillo, along with Miss Erica Moncayo
Okay.
from the self-insurance fund. Las Vegas Senior Center would like to invite everybody who has not received their vaccines for COVID-19. We have a vaccine event scheduled for December 17th at 10 a.m. That's a collaboration that we've done with Albertsons and the state long-term and aging. So they will be giving out first dose, second dose, and your booster shot if you choose to get your booster shot. They will also be administering flu vaccination on the same day. Moving on to the rec center, I would ask Mr. Steven Aragon to join me so he can give you some more information on some current events and upcoming events that he has going on.
Mayor and Council.
Leo, if we have questions on your print, do you want us to wait till the end?
You feel free to jump in if you like.
Okay, I have two questions. A couple of residents contacted me because they pay attention to like the new businesses. They like the new businesses that were reported. They just didn't know how to get information to contact them if they need any of their services. So can I instruct them just to call someone here to get contact information?
Sure, you can either call our office or the planning and zoning office and speak to either Virginia Marujo or Miss Maria Perea, I'm sorry.
Okay.
To get any of the information that you need.
And then the second thing I wanted to request also, and I think I had asked this before, with all the trainings that we're doing, is there ways that we can also get customer service training scheduled? Or is that something that?
The mayor can touch base on that. We are
Okay.
scheduling an event for November.
So we are dedicated a whole month of November to customer service. I will be teaching for 2 days.
Okay.
Every city employee will go through a customer service training, and then we will open up the second day to the community.
Okay.
If the community wants to send employees to do the training. So it's a training that I've done before.
Okay.
And it's something that I think it's really important, but we will be doing the customer service. All the month of November will be designated customer service
So if there's any things we want to request of you, we can just send you an email?
Absolutely,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Mr. Mayor, I share the same thoughts of Councilwoman Rodriguez. It has brought up to my attention that organizations in town would like to have the new businesses list located on the website. And that way they can just go in there and reach out to them for grants, projects, or just to join their organization and to just welcoming them into the community and stuff like that. So if there's like a column or a section that we can put
That's a good idea.
under economic development, put them all in there. And it's amazing, I think since you've been reporting this is something that had never been reported to us in the last year. And since you came on board, it's good to know that we have 8 businesses, 10 businesses every month that are coming into town. And this way, everybody's in tune and we can go shop there or go visit them and find out where they're at and this and the other. So thank you.
Go ahead, Stephen.
So currently we have a free 4-week youth event that kicked off on October 5th. We call it the Spooky Sports Fest. On Tuesdays we have it for 8 and under. And on Thursdays for 12 and under. We rotate from 2 sites there at Keys Sports Fields and then also Rodriguez Sports Complex. We're hoping that the first 2 weeks the turnouts have been kind of small, so hopefully now in the next couple weeks it will increase. We're collaborating with the Las Vegas Youth Soccer League. We are currently maintaining and we have lined 6 youth soccer fields for the first time at Rodriguez Sports Complex in the outfield of the baseball and softball fields. So that facility has been used quite a bit on Saturdays when they have their games. And there's been a lot of positive review for that. Upcoming, we have started registrations for the Youth Basketball Recreation League. We currently have given out 300 registration forms. We have received 40 back. It's still early in the registration process, so we anticipate that anywhere from 300 to 400 youth will participate in this program. It's going to be a 13-week season, 20-game regular season. That doesn't include, we'll also have a postseason tournament. The age groups are from 6 and under, 8 and under, 10 and under, all co-ed, and then there'll be 2 separate 12 and under boys division and a girls division. Registration fee is $60. We anticipate with admission, sales, and our upgraded concession that we should bring in an estimated revenue of $178,000 with cost estimated at $53,000. The registration fees cover $24,000 of the $53,000.
Stephen, I have a question for you. What happens if a youth cannot afford to participate? I want to make sure that all the youth are able to participate.
So we have a couple programs. We're starting to go to businesses. We have a sponsorship form. There's different levels of sponsorship. There's 3 different levels that includes sponsorship of, the first one is 3 youth. The second one is 6. The other one is 10. And then we're also having a local hero program where someone can come into the rec center and pay $60, or if there is a child in need, we have that sponsorship program.
I'd like to be a sponsor.
Yes, sir.
And I don't want any child turned away
Got it.
from participating in anything. So if they don't have money, we can find money for them. I just don't want any child to be turned away from recreation.
Yes, sir.
And that was going to be my response to it also. Is there something that we can inquire? And if financially their families can't afford it, then we go ahead and bring that child into the program. And like the mayor said, we find money for it. Also, can we assist in the sponsorship? I mean, that's something.
I would love, the more assistance we can have is the better. I think that all of us have different relationships with different businesses or with different groups or organizations or individuals, like Mayor Trujillo sponsoring a child.
I have one quick comment, and I know other cities are probably more expensive than $60, but what is that price based on? That sounds like a little steep.
It's based on the amount of games, because our estimated costs are $53,000. So we're asking just to cover 2/5 of that between the registration and the uniforms. Right now, uniforms are anywhere between 40 and 50 with COVID.
And are you also looking for sponsors for the uniforms?
No,
If our
not for the
business is willing?
uniforms. We're just looking for sponsors to provide the basketball league to we at the rec center will make up the differences with admission and our concession sales in order to help cover the other expenses.
Stephen, do you go out to the businesses and ask them for be sponsors or anything like that?
Yes, sir.
Do,
The coordinator started actually today.
stop by our business and
Yes, sir.
see what we can do for you guys.
Will do. Will do.
And what are you doing for publicity regarding the spooky sports?
We advertised it on our Facebook page for the rec center. We also handed out over 400 flyers to the schools
Okay.
at both districts.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate that, Mr. Romero?
Couple things, Stephen. The other part that you probably left out is that based off of some of this money that's generated from registration fees, there's also the fee that because of the staffing that you have, you need to hire outside referees for the games, and they do charge. So and well, you could get some to volunteer, but if you don't pay them, they're not going to show up on a dependable basis. So that's another cost that is like $10-15 per game or something like that.
Yes, sir. Well,
So-
there's the officials
Yeah,
cost,
officials.
and the rate across the state is $30 at this level. We have in the past paid $15, which has been a struggle to provide quality activities for our child or for our youth, because the rates, they will be certified officials.
And of course, that goes with, you want to get individuals that have the knowledge, because in coaching youth sports and being involved in youth sports programs, it can be very chaotic if you don't have those individuals that have the, knowledge and have been, can address issues before they flare up, and you have fights in the stands. So that's a big issue there that, make sure that we get those qualified people. The other thing that I wanted to address, and I was looking on the website right now, and I don't know what we need to do, but we have a city Facebook page, we have about 4 different Facebook pages, and none of this information is on there. So we need to get this information so the people out in the community know about it. And I know the mayor was working with, I don't know where we're at with that, mayor, working a contract with the Optic.
Yep.
So we can get all this information out, because the more people we get to attend these, it's going to be better for the city. And we do, like I mentioned earlier, there's so many good things happening in our community, but that message isn't being sent out. We can only do so much as leaders, to spread that word, but we need to do more. And thank you, Mayor, for setting up that, on a weekly basis, that information is going to be out. So I just, but I still think our Las Vegas NM Facebook page, the web page, there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and I know we're working on the update, but I don't know, we need to get that information out there. The other part that I had as far as I'll let you finish. I don't know.
And just going to mention one other thing. We are going to start, as long as we get all the items in, is a monthly family game night at the rec center. It'll take part on the first Wednesday of every month from 5:30 to 8:30. And right now we're looking at admission, $3 for adults, $1 for youth, $1 for seniors. Such games will include, there'll be a 9-hole putt-putt golf course. There'll be badminton, ballsy buckets, bucket ball, giant Jenga, giant dominoes, giant up 4, cooperative maze, and others. And then really included in that We have these items on order. We provided very limited in the past. I want to make sure, and we're going to have a full, when we open up, not only family night, and any event or program we have at the rec center, is we will have an upgraded concession stand to provide more quality products to our citizens.
Thank you.
That's it.
Bill? Thank you, Stephen.
Mr. Mayor, I have a couple of questions for Mr. Aragon. Where are we on the Hannah Park lighting?
It's on order, we're just waiting for it to come in.
Okay, and what about tables and benches for the Gainas Park?
The benches are on order.
Benches on order?
The additional lighting,
We were pricing out the additional lighting to see what we can purchase with the monies that we have left over. The picnic tables were not, we were pricing out those as well, but the benches are, you are correct that the benches were ordered, but everything's on back order now along with those Hannah Park lights.
Okay, so there's still those $90,000 for tables?
That's brand new monies that we
Okay.
spent, yes.
All right, and the last question I had was the $50,000 that we got for the rec center for lighting. That one, you're going to check, see if we could redirect it for something else, or are you going to use it for
so we're going to look
LED
at
lighting?
what solar projects are covered under the contract. We're also going to work with the contract manager to see if it can include any efficiency, cost savings efficiency as far as LED upgrades or light fixtures or anything within the rec center.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr. Aragon.
Leo, go ahead.
I'm done. I can stand for any other
Thank you.
questions outside of the rec center, if anybody has them.
No, I think you're doing a good job, Leo. Appreciate all your hard work. Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Mr. Mayor, presentations not to exceed 10 to 15 minutes per person. We have a presentation by Caleb O'Rear, CEO with Alta Vista Regional Hospital.
Welcome, Caleb.
Thank you.
Yes,
It is right here in the best spot?
that's right. That's perfect.
Thank you, Mayor Trujillo, for letting me come and chat with you guys. It's been a while since I've come, and I think it's been since the new folks are here that I've been able to come and chat. So I just want to give you a quick update of the hospital, answer any questions that you might have, talk a little bit about COVID, some of the things that are happening for that, and it certainly won't take too much of your time. For any of you that aren't familiar with the hospital, we're a 54-bed hospital, licensed for 54 beds. We operate both medical and surgical units along with a dedicated intensive care unit. We have a 3-suite operating room where we do a variety of procedures at the hospital. A busy ER that some of you may be aware of, and then advanced diagnostics and other outpatient services as well. We have a variety of clinics around the town, outpatient clinics that we have, primary care, pediatrics, OB-GYN, cardiology. We've added to those clinics this year. We've brought in 2 physicians, an additional mid-level advanced provider nurse as well. We have close to 200 employees at the hospital. That on any day of the week, that kind of varies a little bit. In 2020, we had an annual payroll of right at $16.4 million. So a lot of high-paid people at the hospital. Staffing the hospital has probably been one of our biggest challenges lately, frankly. And if any of you have followed any industry journals or happen to see it, staffing hospitals around the country has just been a crisis. In rural settings, it's even much more so. We have staff that are cold called each day by these agencies to try to lure them away to go to California or Oregon or other markets where they're paying them, in some cases, up to $200 an hour to work these units because it's been so hard to find folks. Rural hospitals have been closing. Rural hospitals have been limiting services, and I feel very fortunate that we're in a position to continue on. We've certainly weathered some changes over the past 18 months with COVID, but we feel like we're doing well. Talking a little bit about COVID, I see a lot of familiar faces in here, Leo and others, that when we were dealing with COVID initially, we all worked, I feel like, very well together. At the beginning of the pandemic, our hospital was probably one of the first hospitals in the state to take such drastic measures in closing ranks, really. Limiting our access points to the hospital, limiting visitors to the hospital, having advanced screening at the hospital for all visitors and also our employees at the hospital as well. We began aggressively vaccinating our staff, their families, and the community. I think Leo was at every one of our, and his team was at every one of our vaccination clinics, and over a handful of days, we vaccinated over 10,000 people, literally in the parking lot of the hospital in that MASH tent that many of you might have seen. One of our challenges lately has been when COVID initiated, we had a lot of state guidelines on what we could and could not do at a hospital. And so for those of you that may not know, hospital has a variety of services that it provides, and some are services that financially pay for themselves, and some others are ones that don't. And frankly, we rely on the ones that pay for themselves to pay for the services that don't. And for an extended period of time, we were limited on a number of our elective procedures that we could do at the hospital, which is really what funds our other things at the hospital. Even when those were lifted, for good reason, everybody's using cautious measures, and things that they could push off to other times, they would. And so it's been a struggle to get back to some sense of normalcy. At any given time, we're not a COVID-designated hospital, but at any given time, we've got 3 to 4 patients in-house that are COVID positive. We participate with Christus as our hub for any critical patients that we need to evacuate from our hospital. So we will get patients down to Christus if we need to. At any given time, we've got 3 to 4 employees that are out as well, frankly. 3 to 4 employees that are out with COVID, and a handful of employees sometimes that are out with suspicion of COVID that we are surveilling. And so that's been a challenge for us as well. And really maintaining staffing on a daily basis is probably one of our biggest challenges. I know it is for NMBHI as well. It was a crisis before we got into this, and now it's much more so. To the point that, and Louis knows this well, at multiple points in the day, we're looking at staffing in our hospital. We're looking at what patients are sitting in the ER. We're looking at what's happening in the OR to know how we can plan for the next 8 to 12 hours at the hospital. So, for example, if tomorrow morning we've got 4 operating room cases and we know that there's going to be 3 of them that may need a hospital bed, that impacts our staffing tonight. That impacts our bed utilization tonight. So that we can make sure to have beds for those patients in the morning. And all of that's kind of to the wind, depending on what happens in the ER tonight, where we may be hit with quite a few patients that need beds, or it may be a light night, and we not have those. So quite a challenge. This is something that we continue to balance today. It is something that we have seen kind of a favorable trajectory as we've come out of COVID, a little bit of a blip when the Delta variant came about, but New Mexico in general has been very conservative in terms of minimizing contact, minimizing spread, and so we're just now seeing the hospital start to come out of that. So pre-COVID numbers for you, on a typical month, we would have around 100 operating room cases. We would have around 50 to 60 ER visits a day, and we'd have an average daily census of anywhere between 13 and 15, depending on the acuity. During COVID times, we got down to as few as 20 patients a day in the ER. We got down to as few as 30 cases a month in the operating room, and an average daily census of sometimes 5 to 8 patients in the hospital, so quite a challenge. Our employees have really endured a lot this last year, and they really are the heroes. We've done, like other employers, tried to do everything we can to accommodate them, whether it's be shared schedules, as they've had kids that were home for virtual school. So job sharing was something that we never did before that we've figured out ways to do now, kind of creative scheduling. I am happy to say that during that entire time, while we were watching some hospitals in the industry have massive layoffs and massive furloughs and things like that, we didn't lay one person off. We maintained our staffing. We tried to get our staff as many hours as they could as what they're normally used to, because in many circumstances their spouses or others were working in industries that were limiting hours. So they were, working in restaurants that had shut down, working in other areas. And so I feel like that's something that we were able to maintain. During this time, too, we negotiated through a wage reopener with all of our employees increases in salaries. And so during this time that we were really challenged the most to provide the care continuously at the hospital, we raised salaries of virtually every employee in the hospital, and that's on top of any annual merits that we might have had planned for them as well. We talked a little bit about layoffs. I can talk forever, so I have to put my thoughts down on this so I don't get out of control. Some of the challenges I think that we have at the hospital that are challenges in all hospitals, but frankly it's one that I'm really passionate about here, and that's our service to our patients and the manner in which we provide it. So the hospital's had a bad reputation in the past for some of its employees' behavior and how they treat patients. I've been at the hospital for 4 years, 3.5. I sit down with each new employee at the hospital one-on-one. I have a contract of 8 points of behavior that I've addressed with them. That employee and I sign that contract, and it goes in their employee file. And that is something that I can point to when we have instances of staff not acting the way that we would like them to act, or not treating patients in the way that we'd like to treat them, that we can come back and point to. I think the hospital in previous years has been a little guilty of kind of the warm body syndrome of, for goodness sakes, we don't want to get rid of this person because we're worried that we're not going to have enough staff to care for our patients. And frankly, I'd rather not have them in the hospital and suffer some volume from it than to endure that behavior, because as many of you know, that impacts the behavior of others in the hospital as well. It's frankly a dissatisfier. Our hospital is one that, any ER that I've ever worked in has been a challenge, but this is one that's particularly a challenge here. We all know we're kind of at ground zero on the opiate crisis, and COVID did nothing but exacerbate that. And so it is challenging at times, I understand, to be a nurse that is expected to take care of, at any given night we might have 3 or 4 overdose patients in our hospital in the ER. So it's a challenge to care for those patients with a sense of dignity and pride and compassion that we expect of them, and to be, kicked at and spit on and called all sorts of names, and then expect them to go to the next patient that's the sweet grandmother next door that's got high blood pressure, and have that level of compassion and dignity that we expect. But it is what we expect, and it is how we take care of patients at our hospital. And so I feel in general the hospital's weathered some of the storm pretty well. It's still tough months ahead of us. We closed out September today financially, and to be candid, it was a loss for us, and we've had a number of months that have been losses for us. But I think the trajectory of improvement is there. We are not looking to eliminate or minimize any services at the hospital. We continue to provide obstetrics, which was a big frustration point when I came to town. We continue to provide that, and we plan to continue to do so. We've implemented 24/7 general surgery with 3 new general surgeons in town, 24/7 orthopedics with 2 new orthopedic surgeons in town. And we want to provide as much community care as we can here at the hospital, and transfer as few of patients that we can. Now, I'll be honest with you, we're never going to be a hospital that's doing open heart surgery or doing aneurysm operations, and so when those patients present to the ER, we want to evacuate those patients as quickly as possible, and we'll always maintain that. But bread and butter critical care that we can provide here locally at the hospital, we want to continue to do so, and do it, as I mentioned, in a manner of compassion and dignity and care for everyone that we encounter. So I appreciate you letting me come and share some updates about the hospital. I'm happy to answer any questions about the hospital that anyone might have.
Caleb, I want to thank you personally because our community wouldn't have gotten through this pandemic without the hospital. You know, when your staff works round the clock giving vaccines to 10,000 people, that's significant. There's nothing to sneeze at, nothing to laugh at. This community could not have done this pandemic without you guys. And of course, I love my friend Melinda Bailey, Carson Bailey, and Alice. Those are superheroes.
They are.
Those are the people who earned their badge during this time. Just super professional. They worked so hard, and I can't thank the hospital enough for all the services that you provided during this pandemic. And your staff did a wonderful job. Our community would have been in big trouble if you guys weren't here helping. And you're a very good neighbor to Las Vegas. And we appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I think Melinda is a rock star, and she, for those of you that don't know, Melinda is our infection control professional at the hospital. In fact, she has throughout COVID, she had state officials calling her, asking her opinion on how to handle things. And I would put the way that this town handled COVID and is handling COVID up against any other town. I think everybody's done a phenomenal job. The synergies that we have with y'all's employees, knowing that we could pick up the phone and call Leo, we could pick up the phone and call Antonio, anyone that we needed to pull off these events, we were able to. And I've worked in a number of hospitals where that's not always the case, but that's been a synergy here in town.
I'd just like to let you know and inform you guys that we will be having a $3.6 million project coming through there next year, and that's from Grand Avenue over to 7th Street. And this time around, you won't have to pay a penny like the last time. But if you have somebody in your staff, keep on coming to our meetings to be informed of what's going on there. And then also, do you have any complaints or issues or comments or concerns with the new ambulance service that we have?
Yeah, no, in fact, I was very involved with that RFP and speaking with that ambulance service. And AMR is probably the most well-respected ambulance provider in the country. I've worked with them in a number of different other cities and towns. They are really kind of the blue chip player when it comes to treating those folks. And we were very much lacking, in my opinion, in what the service was before. In the past, I'd gone to the state to speak on that behalf. And so having AMR here has been great. They've had a couple of bumps in the road that were expected, but they were asked to get operational pretty quickly too. So we have no complaints. They are folks that we work well with in the ER. We want to be an open door to those folks too when they want to train on various things for their skills to be able to come into the hospital and do that. So no complaints at all, and I think making that decision was really critical.
And last question, how many doctors do you have in staff now?
So we have, just to give you kind of an overview, we have a staff of hospitalists who are physicians at the hospital that maintain and take care of patients that are admitted in the hospital. Gone are the days that our general practitioner saw us in the hospital and then admitted you and came by at night to round on you. Those are unfortunately gone. But so we have a staff of hospitalists, we have a staff of general surgeons, orthopedic surgeons, a handful of other surgeons. Without having the roster in front of me, I would tell you that we have probably 20 to 22 that are active providers at our hospital now.
That's wonderful.
Sometimes I'd like to go back to the old days.
Me too. Me too. And you know, frankly, it's come down to the economics of it. And so many of those doctors said, you know, with all respect, I can't make a living in my office and then, you know, leave to go over to the hospital to see one or two patients, and it's just not efficient for them. But it is a kind of a sad commentary.
Mr. Romero.
Thank you, Caleb. Again, you know, thank you for all you do, you know, you and your staff there at the hospital, you know, that you do for our community. I'm going to be a little bit different here, and I'm going to disagree with Councilor Montoya. If you guys want to pitch in anything for that project, we're open to that. No, but on a serious note, I know Councilor Montoya, I think you guys met last week?
Yes.
Just, I don't know if somebody from the hospital's involved in the meetings, and okay.
Yeah, we'll remain involved with that. Some of our critical issues and things like that, which I know are important to you guys, are just, maintaining access points throughout the project so that we can timely get patients in and out and EMS in and out. Unlike many other hospitals, we have one entrance and one exit. And so for us, that's pretty critical, but I know that was spoken about, and we look forward to that.
And then that's where, I know, the project only pays from within here, but if there's something that, maybe we could work together, if you guys want to change now the proper time in the planning,
Right.
Add that second entrance or whatever it takes, but
Right.
I just I wasn't sure if you were there.
Yeah, I think we had our engineer, Don Bovia, attend, and a lot of times I'll go to those meetings, but frankly, I spend more time going back and trying to understand some of the stuff than sending the professionals themselves. So Don went, and he'll remain involved with that.
Thank you.
Caleb, I'd also like to, Ethan, is it Ethan?
Ethan Caton, yes, sir.
The PR person, I've also invited him to have something on our website.
Great.
I think it's important for, if the visitor's coming through town, they look it up, they want to know about a hospital. So anything to help you, we can give you guys a corner, and not as advertisement, but just as a service to our community.
Great.
And so we are in the final stages of our design for our webpage. It'll be up and running by December.
Great.
And so this is a good time for him to, we've got you guys a little corner and display our partnership.
I'll make sure of that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Caleb.
Yep.
I appreciate everything.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you. Please keep us in touch.
I will.
Cassandra?
Mr. Mayor, next order of business is approval of minutes for September 15th, September 22nd, 2021.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero, a second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Cassandra, I don't want to get too far out before I thank you and your staff for the good job that you guys do on the minutes.
You're welcome.
They're excellent. And your staff, Danielle, everybody works very hard and very timely, and I really appreciate all your work. Sincerely.
We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Next order of business is the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor?
And we have 3 items on that agenda, if you want me to read them into the record.
Mr. Moore?
Mr. Mayor, I was just going to make a motion to approve the consent agenda if there was any objections.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second, there's a motion by Mr. Romero, a second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Ulibarri Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Ulibarri Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to request the clerk to read just briefly what those items are for the general public.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The consent agenda items are request approval of resolution number 21-44, a budget adjustment for the 2021-2022 fiscal year. Item 2, request approval of agreement between Luna Community College and the City of Las Vegas Senior Citizens Program. And item number 3, request approval of Riverwalk Park Committee, a subcommittee of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Next order of business, please.
Business items. The first, we will conduct a public hearing for business item number 1, and I did not receive any public input for this item.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
I make a motion to enter a public hearing for ordinance number 21-17.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
A second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. We are now in a public hearing. Welcome, Mr. Span.
Mayor and Council, how are you doing?
Good. How are you, sir?
Doing well, thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Hold on just a second. Cassandra, do you want to swear in all the people that are going to be speaking under the, is this the only one that's going to be the
Yes,
public
it
hearing?
is the only one.
Okay, so you just stand up. I'm just going to put you in a row. I state your name. Affirm under penalty of perjury.
Affirm under penalty of perjury.
That tonight. I'll tell the truth. The whole truth. And nothing but the truth. In my testimony before the council.
My testimony before the
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Span.
Thank you, sir. Mayor and council, we're just here for the public hearing for ordinance number 21-17. That's to adopt the two chapters, one from IFC and one from NFPA, so that we can properly handle cannabis and hemp. The only change we've made to the ordinance since the last council meeting was we followed the recommendation and moved the fees up to $150. After that, nothing else has been changed. I stand for any questions you may have.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
I just want to thank you, Deputy Chief, for your work in this. I know you had mentioned you'd been talking to other communities and what they were doing, so thank you for your work.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Span.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to reconvene back into regular session after being in public hearing.
There's a motion to convene into regular session by Mr. Romero. I'll entertain a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
What's the pleasure of the council?
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
I make a motion to approve for adoption of ordinance 21-17.
There's a motion on the floor for approval of 2117 ordinance.
Second.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Sorry. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Span.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Appreciate you being here.
You're welcome, sir.
Next item is business item number 2, request approval to adopt resolution number 21-46 to update mitigation plan. We have Dennis Esquivel, our OEM coordinator, and city manager Leo Mayas.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero?
if there's any questions, if not, I'd like to make a motion to adopt resolution 21-46.
There's a motion on the floor to adopt sorry. What was the number? Oh, 2146. I couldn't. Okay, I'm sorry. I'll entertain a second.
A second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
I'd like to recognize Mr. Esquivel as the OEM coordinator for the city and the county. Welcome, Dennis. Longtime classmate of mine, went to school and since probably, 5th, 6th grade? Been good friends ever since, and welcome and congratulations on your new appointment.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Mr. Montoya?
Mr. Esquivel, so you have a plan before you?
I do. There's a mitigation plan that's,
And is that plan, city manager going to have a copy of that plan?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. I'll review it. Thank
So if I can give you a brief,
you.
I know we already approved it, but if I can give you just a brief synopsis of this. So this is the hazard mitigation, multi-jurisdictional hazard mitigation plan. So we went in, we asked Homeland Security for a grant, we put in for a grant, we received the grant, we hired AECOM to help us come in and produce. We have to update this every 5-6 years. So we've been working on this for 2 years. When I left, it had already had state approval by Homeland Security, and it had gone to FEMA for their approval, and now we need to adopt it. It's a multi-jurisdictional plan, so it encompasses the city of Las Vegas, San Miguel County as a whole, and the village of Pecos. And a lot of mitigation actions are identified in here so that we can go after grants to go to fix those mitigation problems.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Next order of business, please.
Business item 3.
Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you.
Request to publish ordinance number 21-18, amending the code by adding a new article 12 entitled Cannabis Zoning and section 45 through 141, 45 through 142, and 450 through 143 to the existing chapter 450 zoning. We have our city attorney, Scott Aaron.
Welcome, Mr. Aaron. Thank you for being here.
Good evening. You guys have had an opportunity to read through. I'll entertain questions here in a second, but I just had a quick question or a quick comment I wanted to bring to your attention. As part of overhauling the city ordinances regarding cannabis, kind of had to cast a wide net because there's a lot of different areas of our ordinances that the cannabis is going to affect. Everything from water usage, wastewater usage, the nuisance section, zoning. Obviously, there was a lot of the business registrations. So there was a lot of, that's why there's so many different ordinances that are being proposed here for changes to be made to them so we can update them. And some of them honestly, were just kind of old and needed to be refreshed anyway. One of the ones that I wanted to bring to your attention, I've been working with code enforcement over the last probably year and a half that I've been here. One of the things that is not included in this, these proposed changes to the nuisance ordinance, but I would like to have you consider this, is code enforcement is running across situations where individuals who are living in houses here in Vegas don't have utilities turned onto the property. There's no water, there's no wastewater, there's no electricity. That poses a unique problem. I realize some people aren't going to have gas turned on. Maybe they heat with wood. I get that. But not having electricity, water, and wastewater seems to be pretty problematic. The properties that we're running into where there is no electricity, water, or wastewater services are very problematic. There's people who don't have anywhere to use the bathroom or to get rid of their waste. There's no place to clean up. Thank God we haven't found any situations like that where there's children living in those situations, but we have found some adults that are living in that situation. So I wanted to inquire from the council whether you guys would be open to adding under the nuisances, specifically under the dangerous building portions, is something to the effect that properties that have people residing in them within the city limits have to have at a minimum water, wastewater, and electric service to those properties. Otherwise, they could be cited under the nuisance section of the ordinance for dangerous buildings. And the reason I say that is because if you don't have electricity or water or wastewater onto a building for a significant period of time, you're going to have issues. So I would put that out for your consideration. And one other thing on this nuisance ordinance, since we're changing it, it allows for any monies that are spent by the city to abate a property. It allows us to recapture those in the form of filing a lien against the property. So if we go in and we have to remove a building that's just falling over, and the city goes in, red tags them, the owner doesn't do anything, we give them a second red tag, the owner still doesn't do anything, the city can go in under the current ordinance and abate it, and then we can put a lien on the property for whatever monies the city spent. Say we spent $1,000 worth of labor and materials on the project, we can put a lien on that property for $1,000 worth of labor and materials. I would also ask that the court, not the court, but that the city council expand the ability for the city to put a lien on someone's property, not just for monies that we spend to abate it, but if the city fines someone, and there is a fine in here that if the city brings someone to court on an abatement issue and they don't comply, the judge can fine them $500. What I'd like to ask is that if the judge fines them $500, that we could take that $500 and put it as a lien against their property. Because what's difficult is you can assess a lien against anybody. If they don't pay it, they don't pay it, and there's not really any teeth. So those are the two things that I would ask that the council allow me, or at least consider allowing me to add into what's already here before you tonight. And in addition to that, I'll attempt to answer any questions that you have.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
So on those changes that you're recommending tonight, is that page 13, Ordinance 301-5? Is that where you're wanting to?
It would be on, let me see here. The dangerous building section is on page 14 of my ordinance. It is letter 301-5, letter G. And I would put language in there stating that a building or any structure or building would be considered dangerous if, at a minimum, it doesn't have electric, water, and wastewater services to the building.
So this whole ordinance 21-18, kind of as we're going through everything, it's going to amend all these other ordinances within?
No. If you scroll down, you'll see I've listed each of the ordinances separately that are being amended.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ordinances in here. I know it's pretty long.
I guess my question is, when we update that, the company, and I can't remember, maybe Madam Clerk, you would be able. So when we amend this, all these other ordinances will be changed within the ordinance book within the city?
Yes, that's what's being proposed.
Okay. And the reason, I mean, I agree with that one, but to add more to tie into the whole cannabis thing is, and that was going to be one of my questions, is let's say there are these homes that don't have the utilities, don't have anything, but now within the cannabis law, they're able to grow plants. But, I mean, if they don't have no water, no anything, then how, I mean, so that becomes kind of, I'm going to say we live there and we're growing plants, but nobody really lives. It's just a way to. So I don't know if that's kind of what you're trying to incorporate. That's the way I'm thinking.
Well, that could certainly be kind of a collateral effect of this. In other words, somebody using abandoned homes as grow rooms. I hadn't anticipated that, but I can tell you from all the information I gathered regarding this cannabis thing, the states that have already legalized, like Washington, Oregon, even Colorado, have experienced a lot of what they're calling black market growers who are growing illegally.
And that's why I'm kind of asking is, I mean, they do the meth labs, empty properties, they do all that, so I'm just kind of,
That's part of it. So there's a number of issues that I anticipate we're going to come across that we haven't even imagined or foreseen at this point. But based on, the other states that have legalized for recreational use prior to us, I've tried to do my best to cast a wide net, see what those issues were. We had statements in the Las Vegas Optic recently from the mayor of Trinidad explaining some of the issues that they had. So we're trying to do our best to cast a wide net and kind of preempt a lot of these things, but I think that will prove to be an impossible task.
So I'll go through some of mine real quick. On page 3, number 12, cannabis shall not occur in private residence if said residence is used commercially. So my question there is, so who will be inspecting or cross-referencing the business licenses to make sure that somebody that's growing in a residence, or how do I say this question? So I operate a daycare, but I'm growing on so is somebody going in there to inspect annually to these businesses, and if they do see plants, with the growing plants, whether inside, outside, and basically the way this ordinance reads right now is that they shouldn't be operating a daycare, or they can't have they have to do one or the other, basically.
That's right, and that would be something that would be left up to our department here, who's issuing the business licenses, to be able to determine whether or not there's cultivation or processing of cannabis at a location that's providing daycare services to children. The daycare service would have to be registered with the city anyway if they're a business. They're operating as a business. So we would have to police that end of it.
So I guess, and maybe DC spend, is that something that you guys, normal, of course, we don't have the cannabis ordinance now, but is that something that you kind of see problematic?
Possibly, sir, depending. Here, we are required to inspect them whether they're in home or not, but they wouldn't be allowed to do cannabis by state law anyway, if they were a child care facility if we students anyway.
That's correct. In our ordinance, what we're setting here, one of the things we're allowed to set is distance.
Okay, and I guess to kind of re-clarify, this is for residential, so somebody that's growing up for their own. Basically, if they have a daycare center, they don't have that option. So I'm just kind of saying, correct. Do we have, or are we going to be able to implement that to go into those daycares and say, hey, you can't? How are we going to address that?
If you're residential, other than a daycare, we are in the same spot as we need air conditioner or warmth. So you can't just want to place home start regulating what they have.
And then the next item on page 4, we have the fees: fire inspection, water, wastewater, building. I know fire you guys have your credentials, but mine, like the security, who does the security, water and wastewater, like who's, on those inspections, is there certifications that these individuals have to get in order to charge, or how are we doing that?
Currently, our water and wastewater departments are set up to go in and inspect properties that are being hooked up or that are being connected or disconnected from water or wastewater services. So this is something that is not necessarily unique to somebody running a cannabis business. But what it does is it allows these different divisions of the city, so the fire, water and wastewater, building inspection, and security. What I anticipated was that the police department would be able to go and do an assessment of a security system, so that these areas that are engaging in cannabis-related commercial activities have some type of security system. I mean, I can't imagine they wouldn't, but us requiring that they have that. So that people aren't trying to break into those establishments and steal product, and so the police department would be in charge of doing a security inspection, much like the fire department does a fire inspection.
So kind of the way I was looking at as far as security was, and I don't know if there's a certification within the PD that does this, so kids, break into a business, whatever it is. Of course, security cameras, all that, but to make sure that as they're in the facility or in the growing area, depending which one it is, but to make sure that the proper procedures, that there's proper chain link or whatever, that protects what's inside, so nobody breaks in, so kids can go in. That's the kind of security I was looking at.
Well, it could be extended to that. I know when I was in Albuquerque, that when I set up an alarm system on my commercial building in Albuquerque, the APD had to come out and do an inspection, and they charged me money once a year to come out and inspect it, make sure everything was supposed to be the way it was laid out in city ordinances. So other cities have this functioning where the police department goes out and does some type of that was specifically for a security system. And that's one of the things that's required in other states who've already legalized for commercial purposes, commercial growing and selling, is that they've got to have some type of security system on their premises.
Okay, so...
But a security system could be hiring somebody to go around their property 7/24, right?
Well,
it doesn't state exactly what kind of security.
So in these ordinances, there's a difference between someone who's growing, someone who's selling retail, and then someone who has a consumption area, like a cannabis bar, for lack of a better word. Someone who has a cannabis bar has to have physical security, like bars have bouncers. You have to have physical security there to make sure that there aren't underage people accessing it illegally. So that's a little bit different. But places that either grow or do retail, okay, would have to have a security system set up. And I believe I'd have to look through and find where that's at. But they do have to have a security system set up.
Can I jump in? Okay, so fire inspections, we have fire chief. Building inspector, we have a building inspector within the city. But I guess my whole thing, security inspection, that one licensed person, somebody breaks in, kids get in, they have a fiesta inside the whatever the place is. Company, something that's, use a bad scenario, something happens to kids inside. They come back and say, hey, well, you know what, I don't know if the PD or who would be doing the security on it, right? They could come in and say, hey, well, let's say police department, I don't know what department's going to do the security. I'm just kind of thinking, well, they come back and say, well, you guys charge us, we thought our building was secure, our building was secure, so you guys are liable because it wasn't properly gated or whatever it was. So I'm looking at that as the security part of this aspect that we're charging for. Who's the responsible?
Well, my understanding is that the security that's required by this ordinance is going to be camera, and I believe there's some lighting elements to it, so that if you're buying from a retail store and it's after dark and you've got to walk from the establishment to your car in the parking lot, there's lighting, so prevent issues. But it's not a are all your windows theft-proof? Are there any openings or entries from the rooftop? It's not that kind of security. It's mostly dealing with locks, securing doors and windows, camera systems, and lighting. Those are the primary areas that this is addressing. It's not, is your building theft-proof? It's not that kind of security.
Anybody wants to jump in? I'll kind of more. But
It just seems that that is a large liability on the city. If we're charging $150 for security inspection, and I think whoever, as Councilman Romero was talking about, whoever goes out and inspects, we have to be able to provide them with some kind of licensure, I assume.
It actually calls for a list of recommendations that they're required to meet a certain threshold before they can open for business. The same as it would be for fire, water, wastewater, building inspection. There's a certain bare minimum amount of security we want for every cannabis establishment. They can always do more, and most of them probably will. I mean, most of these places will be like Fort Knox. You can't get into them if they're locked up. But it's to have a bare minimum so that every place in town, the city is confident that there's a bare minimum level of security based on lighting, video, and being able to lock all of the entrance and exits.
So you don't see, as the attorney for the city, you don't see that as a liability if we issue a certification and it's secured? And if something happens, it's not going to be a liability on the city?
I don't believe it's going to be a liability on the city, because all we're doing is going in and making recommendations saying, if you want to open up a business in the city, here's the recommendations that we're requiring you to make prior to opening.
To secure it, okay.
We're not telling you you're never going to get broken into. We'll never put that in.
And you're not advising them on the type of device to use. We're going in there and saying, you have a security system, is that what you call security? Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And part of it is so that our police force knows what security they're using. So if they've got a call out to that place, there's been a break-in, there's been this, there's been that. They know, okay, here's the camera system, here's what so that our police department has an idea of what they're going out to before they get into it. If they've got something on file saying, here's the last time we were in that building, here's the checks we went through, here's the recommendations we made, here's what we anticipate they've installed, then they'll know what, kind of what they're getting into, rather than just being called out to some place where they have no idea what's going on.
So, if I may. So if there's going to be a security inspection from whatever police department, whether it be state police, whether it be the police, our police department, if they sign off or whatever, they meet the requirements of whatever cameras and whatever lighting, and as long as there's locks on, inside the gate or out the doors, it's up to them to upkeep that anyways. So if we get a call and all of a sudden the camera system doesn't work, that's on them. It's going to be the responsibility of that business owner to upkeep their security system, or lighting, ensure the locks on the gates are maintained and their security cameras are maintained. So, as far as the liability on any law enforcement who does that inspection, it's still going to be up to them to, their responsibility to upkeep their security after it's been approved or signed off on. So there shouldn't be any liability on the agency that's doing the security inspections.
So just kind of, you see the building aspect. It's just the security part. We're charging for a service, we're charging $150 for each service. So we just kind of, I guess the security one kind of doesn't ring with me, how we're charging $150. So yeah, you have I don't know if there's, and maybe this could be a direction. Can you look to, check with other agencies how how did we come about the security part, the security charge on this?
It was just something that I noticed that other jurisdictions had done. Like I said, my experience in Albuquerque, and I think it was $50 at the time, I can't remember, but I think it was $50 just for them to come out and do an inspection before I could hook up my security system. That didn't include locks on doors and lighting, that didn't include any of that. That just strictly included them coming in. I don't remember what the exact cost was, but I think it was somewhere around $50 for the year. And they had to do it annually, because they wanted to make sure that you didn't just hook up the system and then As soon as they walk out the door, you disconnect it, you're done.
Or have 20 false alarms to your business.
That's the other thing, is that
Costs a lot of money.
costs a lot of money for them to respond to false alarms.
So that was part of the research that you had done by looking at all these other states, and that's what they implemented as a security.
The other question that I had, well, not question, I guess kind of a comment on page 7 on the top. It basically, well, it goes 6 and then 7, but place of business. On here, there's where it says place of business unless a construction contract, let's see. That's not in, I have it highlighted, but. Let me find that, I have it highlighted, but, so I'll skip that one, but the other part, the ETZ, there's nowhere in here, I know you're working with the county, but in here, there's nowhere, county or city, who's going to, in that zone there, oversee that? Because I know we have issues where we send people to the county when it should be here, so I just want to make sure that that's clear here, that we're not basically leaving a loophole within jurisdiction.
Yes, and I got an email from Amanda this week saying, what are we going to do about the ETZ? So the ETZ, it's outside of the city limits. It is inside of a certain buffer zone where we have some influence, but at the end of the day, the ETZ zone primarily falls under the county. Now, like I said, we have some influence. We have some. It's a shared buffer zone. I didn't include anything in the ETZ in here. I'm happy to get together with her and put that in place so that when this gets done being published and it comes back before you for consideration of being passed, that we can add something in there regarding the ETZs. I'm happy to do that. She reminded me this week that that had not been done.
It's as simple as adding that if you fall into the ETZ zone, county will take care of your governance.
Well, yeah, and that would be the default.
But then we also fall into, because if they do fall within the county, we're stuck in that agreement that we need to, because we have city water, we have city wastewater. So it's not really only upon the county, it does fall within. So I think somehow if there's some language in there that we need to tie, because if we say county, well, they probably can't make some decisions because they need some of the water and some of these other issues that need addressed. So I think.
Yeah, one of the things that's included in this group of ordinances is a prohibition against using any municipal water for commercial cannabis purposes. The biggest problem that Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado are experiencing is the stealing of water for cannabis production. It's a huge problem, and anything west of the Mississippi is having water issues. So this is, I know this was touted as the new green industry, but unfortunately it's resulting in some severe water problems and issues. So one of the things that this would do is make a prohibition that commercial cannabis establishments could not come tap into city water. And according to their state licensure, they have to prove water rights and where they're getting their water from and stuff before they can even get licensed at the state level. So that it was just a protective measure for us to put that into our ordinances. It exists higher on in the state statutes as well. So you guys aren't passing this as an ordinance tonight. What we're doing is approving it so it can be published, and then I anticipate we will get some feedback from the community, and that will give me and Ms. Salas some time to work on an ETZ portion of this that we can bring back to you at the time that this is done being published, and you can consider it at that point.
What's the pleasure of the council? Mr. Romero?
Clarification, Cassandra. So if we adopt it here with no changes, he publishes it, then we'd have to have another public meeting if we do change it, right?
So it's just to publish. The approval is just to publish it as is. So what Scott is saying, in the meantime, he's possibly going to have some changes, and we'll bring it back for adoption in next month. Yeah, November 10th.
But if he adds a section regarding ETZ zone, don't we have to publish that?
That's substantive, so I would think that yes, we would have to publish that.
So then we would have to publish a second time.
So if you want to postpone the publishing of this until we get the ETZ?
Yeah.
And that would also give me an
Could we-
opportunity to add in those two abatement-related changes.
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero.
I would suggest that maybe, Scott, maybe you could make those changes, and then I know we have a dedicated meeting next week for the charter, but, I mean, those changes are amended in that. I mean, I don't see no big issues just to publish it. If you could, would that be good?
So table this until next week.
I have no problem with that. I want to keep that agenda as focused as possible because the city charter is going to take some time to discuss, but I would allow this one item to be on the agenda.
So we could postpone this item until October 20th.
Then I'll entertain a motion as such.
Question, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. McCall.
So, Mr. City Attorney, so you're saying that at this time, we can't do any amendments to this before it goes to publication and approve it tonight? Any changes?
You can, if there's some changes that you'd like to see made on this, I'm happy to do that. And then when I bring it back at the next city council meeting, it'll have the ETZ changes, it'll have the modifications to the nuisance, and then whatever other things that you guys...
But you can't make those changes before you publicize it and then...
Yes, we can make those changes before we publish it.
So there's no need for it to come back if you can do that. Just make the changes that you want right now and then publicize it.
Well, I think you guys want to review the ETZ
Yes,
portion
we do.
before it gets published, because that's going to be pretty substantive. I'd feel more comfortable if you guys have an opportunity to review that.
Now, I just had three points. Mr. Chief, Police, do you have any objections to this ordinance? No. Mr. City Manager, do you have any objections?
No, sir.
Okay. And the other thing I had was on page 14, letter E. Why are we including that about dead animals in there, in this ordinance? What does that have to do with the business and the cannabis?
Page 14, and what's the letter?
Letter E, dead animals for the owner of the...
Because this is updating the entire nuisance ordinance.
Yeah.
And so that was something that was, you can't just leave dead animals on your property. So I'm updating the entire nuisance ordinance right now, not just the portion that deals with cannabis, but I'm updating the whole nuisance ordinance.
Okay, so you're saying this ordinance is also going to have to be for abatements and everything else included, even though it says cannabis?
Another
zoning.
Yeah, it's got all of the different portions of the ordinances that are affected by the cannabis. And so I took this opportunity to overhaul the nuisance ordinance because it had been a while since it's been overhauled.
Yeah.
And I know that the council had asked me on a couple of occasions to change the red tag process and whatnot, so I did all that as part of this overhaul of the cannabis.
So you're saying this is going to supersede or take over the abatement ordinance?
And nuisance.
And nuisance ordinance, yeah.
And that shouldn't be included in here, in the heading, instead of just cannabis zoning.
Well, we could change the title of the heading if you'd like. The changes, what prompted the changes was the cannabis legalization. But like I said, I took the opportunity to update some of the other things in the nuisance ordinance that the council had brought to my attention.
I just don't want to go do without our abatement ordinance and then not be able to do anything with it if this is going to be titled cannabis zoning. Entirely different.
Okay, I'm happy to put amending and updating of various city ordinances and creation of new cannabis ordinance. You can change the title on that, it's no problem.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to table this item till October 20th.
There's a motion on the floor to table by Mr. Romero. Second, please.
A second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Scott. Next order of business.
Next item is 4, request approval of addendum number 1 to contract 3687-20 for Control Cyber to continue to provide services for the Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, required risk and resiliency assessment an emergency response plan for the City of Las Vegas water system.
Thank
We
you.
have Utilities Director Maria Gilbert.
Welcome, Maria. I appreciate you being here.
Good evening, Mayor and
It's pretty
Councilors.
self-explanatory.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I make a motion to approve an addendum to contract 3687.
And there's a motion on the floor. Second, please.
A second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Councilor Montoya?
I do have a question, Mr. Mayor. So Maria, on this risk and resilient assessment, that was already completed on June 20th or 21st?
The risk and resiliency assessment has already been completed. That's the first half of the requirements. The second half is an emergency response plan.
And that's what this is all working on?
We need to keep the company under contract so we can finish both parts of them.
And what's the deadline for this?
We need to submit the emergency response plan to the federal government by December 24th, I believe.
Yes, December
23.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 5, request to award request for bid 2022-05 for Mayock Salt
Mr.
to
Mayor?
Saltworks.
Mr. Romero?
Make a motion to approve bid number 2022-05.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to approve the bid. Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 6, request to award request for bid 2022-07 for liquid aluminum sulfate to Chemtrade Chemicals US LLC.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Make a motion to award bid 2022-07.
There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to adopt the contract. Second.
A second.
Second by Dr. Rodriguez. And please roll call.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Item number 7, request to award request for proposals 2022-08 for engineering services for the City of Las Vegas Municipal Airport to Moles and Corbin.
Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Montoya.
Maria, I would like to ask, how come this didn't go before the airport committee and they don't have a recommendation either way?
I cannot answer why it did not go before the airport committee, other than I think they just met, so this was submitted prior to. I think they met yesterday. Yes. So this proposal was opened and assessed prior to that meeting.
Okay, can I recommend that anything that has to do with the airport committee or the airport be going through the airport committee? Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council?
I so move, Mr. Mayor, to go ahead and approve this proposal of 2022-08, engineering services for the Las Vegas Municipal Airport.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor by Mr. Montoya to award requested proposal. Second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Montoya, a second by Councilor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Item number 8, request to award request for proposals 2022-09 for engineering services for the City of Las Vegas dams and reservoirs to ACOM.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve award 22-09.
There's a motion on the floor.
A second.
I'm sorry, there's a motion on the floor by Mr. Romero to award the requested proposal. Second by Dr. Rodriguez. Please roll call, please.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya? Councilor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, a second by Councilor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries. Item number 9, request to award request for proposals 2022-10 for engineering services for the City of Las Vegas Gas Division to Moles and Corbin.
Mr. Montoya?
Yeah, Maria, on this, I don't know if it's not directly related to this, but we had approved all those tanks to be, removed that were on Mullins,
Yes.
I believe. Well, how did that project go? And is it completed, or what's left there?
It was completed. My staff told me that everything was completed and everything removed, and we received a check from the company. We actually got paid for them to remove all the propane and those materials.
And so what's left there? That just,
What's left there is any of the facilities that Gas Division is still needing.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions? What's a pleasure to council?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to approve award 2022-10.
There's a motion on the floor to approve the request. I'll entertain a second.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Montoya. Roll call, please.
Councilor Romero?
Yes.
Councilor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Councilor Montoya?
Yes.
Councilor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Councilor Romero, second by Councilor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 10, the request to award request for proposals 2020-11 for engineering services for the City of Las Vegas Public Works Division to Miller Engineering, Moles and Corbin, Sauter Miller, and Spantic.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Romero.
make a motion, and I have a comment to Maria. I make a motion to award proposal 2020-11. And with that, Maria, could you just, for the record, you're recommending the 4 engineering firms, so just so the public's aware?
Yes, Counselor. So we did have 8 proposers, and we're recommending 4 of them. One reason is due to the number of road projects we have in planning. We want to make it available to the best needs of the community, the best needs of the city, which is one of the expectations and requirements of the RFP is the needs of the city. So by having a few engineers under contract, it gives us a little bit of flexibility. One or two of them are already performing tasks with the city, and they need to continue and finish those tasks.
Very well. Thank you. What's a pleasure to council?
Mr. Mayor, question.
Mr. Montoya?
Not a question, but basically a comment. In our community, sometimes we're questioning how come we give so many contracts to a certain individual and not the rest. And I think I like this idea where you split it up, and whatever mechanism you use to choose them for that project, I hope it's some kind of a metrics system. But this diverts from just going with the same vendor all the time, and I think it's a good idea, actually, to have a choice, depending on what kind of scope of work that you're doing.
Counselor, if I might, we like that idea as well, because of the different types of projects, as well as sometimes we find an engineer that is exceptional, and sometimes we find an engineer that maybe is not quite as good for the city's needs. And so having flexibility helps there. We do, in each one of these cases, the professionals in that area are the ones that sit on the evaluation board. So in this case, it would have been streets and facilities staffing that would have sat on this board. Gas would have been sat by the gas crews, and water by the water crews. We do have the specialists in those areas who can assess the engineering.
And just a point of concern of mine is let's try and not spend all our money on planning and design. Let's see if we can get the projects done.
With the, Counselor, with the roughly 20 or so projects that I've been working with streets on, there's a good portion of them that we believe we can go directly to a contractor, asphalt company, and avoid engineering, especially if it's only city funding. If it's going to be state funding or DOT funding, then we are required to use an engineer. But if it's something like just a mill and overlay, we can go straight to and hire directly to the asphalt company.
And on the Camino de Escuelas, are we hiring an engineer there already, or?
Camino de las Escuelas currently is part of the Bridge Street project, so that will be under the existing engineer. And DOT is requiring they see any changes in plans, as well as historic preservation. So we do have to make official engineer stamp plans for that.
Do you have that funding for that?
If we don't have the funding, we have the budget.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you. What's the pleasure of the council, Mr. Romero?
I had a motion on the floor.
There's a motion on the floor for approval, the request for proposal for 2209 for engineering.
That's 2211.
I'm sorry, 2211. And there's a second by Mr. Ulivari.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item number 11, request for proposals 2022-12 for engineering services for the City of Las Vegas Water Treatment Plant to Moles and Corbin, Bohannon Houston, and HDR.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion to award proposal 2022-12.
There's a motion on the floor to award the request for proposal 2022-12. I'll entertain a second.
I second.
A second by Dr. Rodriguez. Roll call, please.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Rodriguez. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Moving on to item.
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate all your work.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks for staying up.
It's still early, Mr. Mayor.
Item number 12, Mr. Mayor, is request approval of resolution number 21-45. This is the 2022 election resolution, both in English and Spanish. And an election resolution must be adopted by the governing body between 120 to 150 days prior to the election. So the 120 days marks November 1st. So we don't have a meeting until November 10th. That's why I have brought it to Mayor and Council tonight for approval.
Very well.
And
I make a motion to approve resolution 21-45.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor to approve resolution 2145.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you for your help, Cassandra.
You're welcome. Moving on to item number 13. Discussion, direction, and request approval to obtain an appraisal on the city's property, the gas station located on the corner of Moreno and South Pacific. And we have our Mayor Trujillo presenting.
Thank you. So this is the famous gas station that's been abandoned and junked for 54 years on the same on the same corner. It's an eyesore. It's directly off the plaza. And so we need direction as to where we want to go with this. I'll entertain any questions or comments. My life and my days would be over the day that this building comes down, because it's in my neighborhood and it's right by a public school and it's a complete nuisance. So if that happens, thank you. So Scott, what is your opinion? What do we need to do? I know we acquired the gas station because of a lien and an auction.
Yes, the property, we had a lien on the property for work that had been done on the property over the years. We asked the court to foreclose on the lien. The court did foreclose on the lien. The house was sold, the property was sold on the courthouse steps at auction. Nobody bid on it, and so it was awarded to the city. Now, with properties like this, state statute requires us, any property that's valued at over $25,000, there's two different ways to handle it. If the property's under $25,000, you get it appraised, you show it's under $25,000, the city can sell it, do whatever they want with it. If it's over $25,000 and the city wants to sell it, then they've got to put it up for a referendum vote. So I know a while back, it was a few months back at least, the city had made an accounting of all of the properties that the city owns that the city's not using and doesn't anticipate using. And we had an appraiser go out and appraise a bunch of those properties. My suggestion is what the city should do now is, once again, go through our list of properties that the city owns, the city's not using and doesn't anticipate using in the future, and get someone to come in and appraise all of them at once, because it's a lot cheaper to appraise 20 properties than it is to just do them one at a time. Get them all appraised, and then what we need to do at that point is, once we've got appraisal amounts, we can divide them into two categories: under 25,000, over 25,000. The ones that are over 25,000, we need to put them on a list. We need to put them up for a referendum vote, get the city residents to vote on whether or not the city has the authority of the residents to sell those properties. If that vote is in the affirmative, then the city at that point can sell those properties.
What's another way around that?
Once they're over $25,000, the state law governs that we've got to do the appraisal and we've got to do the referendum vote. The issue with that property is there's probably tanks in the ground that are very old, and we don't want to fool with that. So my recommendation would be, you could raise the building and just concrete over everything and turn it into a parking lot. If there's not any type of value to the building. I saw some pictures of the building and its contents, but there were pictures that were taken probably 15, 20 years ago. So
It's the same and worse.
Okay.
Scott, on that station that you have, there is a gas station, it's still it's got the gas tanks in the bottom, doesn't it?
I'm pretty sure it does, and that's why I don't recommend that we dig or do any type of excavation, because then we're going to have environmental problems to deal with. But it's up to the council. If the council, whatever the council wants to do. But the city could hold on to the property and just raise everything and pave it, turn it into kind of collateral parking for the plaza or something like that. Or if the city has another need for it, the city doesn't have to sell it, but that's for you guys to kind of consider as part of the.
So what would we have to do tonight to say that we need to get it raised and concrete put there and a parking lot put there by tomorrow?
And do we have to be concerned about the tanks?
No, as long as you don't disturb.
So long as we don't go in there and excavate them. We're not disturbing the area, but yeah, once we break the concrete and get down to where those tanks are, we're going to have some environmental remediation to do. So my suggestion would be don't do that.
And then laying concrete over it is not disturbing. Okay.
It is attached to another building, and do we have to get an engineer to determine if it's visible or not, or what the damage is going to be, or?
It is. It's attached to the building that's on the property right next to it. So that gas station is attached to a building which I think people rent.
It's an apartment.
It's an apartment.
And it's an adjoining wall. The wall's not big.
Do you have pictures?
I've been there.
I don't have pictures with me, and the pictures that I did have were very, very old. They were probably taken 20 years ago.
It's not, and I can tell you that it's not, I don't think it's an adjoining wall.
Okay.
As much as it is right next to it.
Okay.
But the contents and the building alone, there's absolutely no worth to it.
It would probably be good for the council to give direction to whoever's going to be in charge of doing it, to get an engineer to go out there and look at it, just to give us a professional opinion about what we need to do to get that gas station.
Mr. Mayor? Do we have an engineer on staff that we can get to there right away? By tomorrow?
I'm not aware if there's one or not.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
Mr. Mayor, and thank you for, I know you've been very involved in this. I just want to concur with you that, that does fall within our ward, and that has been a nuisance to everyone in that ward. So I agree with you that, the sooner that we move on that, the better. I would suggest that we not only give direction for the appraisal, but also whatever it takes to, we need parking, ASAP. So if we can give direction as to come up with a plan and maybe a cost.
We don't need to appraise it unless the city wants to sell it. If the city's not going to sell it, we don't need an appraisal. We can skip the appraisal and just go right to having a plan developed, to have an engineer go take a look at it, figure out what it's going to do to get that building torn down without disturbing the neighbor's property, and we can, if you give us that direction tonight, we can get the ball rolling in that direction.
Mr. Mayor?
Mr. Romero?
I make a motion that we give direction to get a cost estimate on knocking down that building, and as at minimally for now, put a maybe a parking lot with chips or something. That would be my suggestion.
Praise the Lord.
I have a question. So, Aaron,
Oh, that's it?
That's the beauty.
Okay.
is there a building next to it that is in the same condition or that has been red tagged or anything like that?
No.
The one behind it, to my knowledge, has not
Those are
been red
apartments behind
tagged.
it.
No, but next to the left, south of it.
Ooh, I'd have to take a look at
South is the old parts store, the old True
Is
Parts,
that building red tagged or
the white one.
anything like that?
I'm not aware if it is or not.
Oh, okay.
It's, they are paying that vacant building fee to keep that building vacant, the Arianes family. It looks like it's in bad repair. It looks like the ceiling or the roof is about to cave in on that building as well.
Yeah,
It looks like it's in very bad repair.
it's almost to go down, so.
Right. And so that's, okay.
Mr. Mayor, I make the second motion. And,
Thank you.
Just to note on the record, we've been looking for parking near the Plaza Park, and we approved for them to proceed with a $10,000 grant. The other thing that we might want to keep in mind is that, we do need a location down around the plaza for restrooms.
Yep.
Yes.
Public restrooms.
That would be a beautiful place for,
So keep that in mind also that,
really make a nice dog park. Just kidding.
Well, even at the Valencia parking lot, maybe we could look at doing bathrooms, public
Mhm.
bathrooms in that area or something, because they're in dire need, and I think
Can you
outdoor toilets are already outdated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Can you get a close-up and see if you could see the toilet that I see every morning? It's exposed on the left. There it
Oh, right
is.
there.
There it is. Beautiful, beautiful, right there. Thank you. So there's a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Could you please clarify the motion?
Mr. Romero?
The motion is to give direction for a cost
Cost estimate
estimate
for tearing down the building,
to building and putting
demolish the building.
demolish the building and create at minimally a parking lot with, not chips, but what? Base course. Base course or chips, yeah.
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Romero? Counselor Romero?
Yes, sorry.
I have a motion by Counselor Romero, a second by Counselor Montoya. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you, Council, for your support.
Thank you, City Manager. You're really efficient with that map. I appreciate it.
Is that Google
I'm
Maps?
very good at it.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, I'd like to just take a second to recognize our guests that have been in the gallery.
Yeah.
Thanks for staying up with us. And you're always welcome to attend.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Latour?
Yeah, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to go into executive session. That's the last item on the board. Pending or threatening litigation, NMSA 1978 10-15-1.
There's a motion on the floor, second? Second by Mr. Romero. Roll call, please.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, a second by Counselor
Who do
Romero.
you need
Thank
in
Mr.
here?
Mayor, motion carries.
Let me just manager
And the chief?
You ready?
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we go back into regular session, and that only pending and threatened litigations, NMSA 1978-10-15 for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to note for the record that only those matters specified in the motion for closure were discussed and no action was taken.
Thank you very much. There's a motion on the floor. Second?
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Second by Mr. Ulibarri. We are now in open session. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Can I take?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Real quick. Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya?
Yes.
Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
The motion by Mr. Montoya, second by Mr. Ulibarri. Roll call, please.
Counselor Romero?
Yes.
Counselor Rodriguez?
Yes.
Counselor Montoya? Counselor Olivari Jr.?
Yes.
I have a motion by Counselor Montoya, second by Counselor Olivari Jr. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Mr. Mayor, for
Don't forget the meeting tomorrow at 9.